Peter, Sir Francis Bacon was known as a philosopher and also as a poet, but he got some other titles as well. He was called the founder of Freemasonry and the father of the Rosicrucians. What was all that about?
Yes, this is part of the treasure trail. Game of hide and seek.
So many things to find out about this man.
And Freemasonry is used this as a myth or an allegory of human building the human soul, of the temple, Solomon's temple. So each incarnation is carving a stone and so on, shaping it, polishing it, and raising it up to put in the right place in your soul temple, your temple of light, Solomon's temple. Well, I've been an architect myself, but it's obvious for anyone, when you build a building, it's on foundations.
Yes.
But once you build the building itself, the foundations are covered up.
Yeah.
But you can't have a building without foundations. That's the first thing that has to be laid.
Yes.
So he was the founder. He's covered up.
Yeah.
And he knew this principle, so he covered it up deliberately. But it's still possible, you know, somebody might get to know a building or how it works. They'll know there are foundations underneath, and they might start to look for them to see what they're like. And it also, in another way, allegorical way, relates to the wisdom of the universe. The wisdom underlies everything, and that wisdom is love.
Yes.
But it's covered up by all the things we do in this world and other worlds. Other beings do other things. All that we do covers up this underlying wisdom, but the universe couldn't exist without that foundation of wisdom that ties everything together and holds it. Holds it steady, but it's always in movement too. It's a constant movement, which is amazing wisdom. And really, that's the thing to try to understand. We need to find that wisdom to learn how life works, so that we can live better lives, express that wisdom better in our lives. So it's the same with Bacon. He set up a treasure trail so that we could find this foundation underneath, including the founder.
Yeah.
And he set up different treasure trails, and I find the principal treasure trail is also a method of training us in his method to discover all things. His principal training for that, practical method, a practical example, I mean, is the search for the author of the Shakespeare plays.
Yes.
Who was that author? Because that's analogous to the author of the universe. Who is the author of the universe?
Right. Yes.
But at the same time, you know, one could eventually say, well, Bacon was the main author of Shakespeare plays. Yes. Other people say, well, maybe, and others will say, oh, impossible.
But in just teaching you to ask that question.
Just asking to ask a question, and as you search, you find out other things that wouldn't otherwise have been discovered. It's just of huge, huge value. And actually, Bacon gave that example from Aesop's tale of the father who goes off leaving 3 sons in charge of a vineyard, and he just says, oh, by the way, as he's leaving, he says, by the way, I've buried a pot of gold in it. So the brothers spend 7 years digging away to try and find this pot of gold, but by digging they make wonderful harvests of grapes, so they reap in a lot of income from it. And the father comes back and he's obviously pleased, but the brothers say, well, you know, we didn't find your pot of gold. The father says, well, yes you did.
That's not quite what you thought it was.
It's not quite.
Yeah, great teaching.
Yes. So Bacon makes a lot of that, you know, saying, you know, this is a key to this. But he gave this practical teaching method. You search for the author of the Shakespeare plays. You might or might not find the real author, but in doing that, you'll make a wonderful harvest.
Yes.
And that's great. That's exciting in itself.
Yes.
But it's not the only thing to search for.
Yeah.
And there are also other treasure hunts he's set up as well.
Yeah.
And there are different sorts of plays. The Shakespeare plays present it for the public in a certain way, and they look mostly at the human psyche and human behaviour, and therefore what are the laws of that world. But then he set up other things for investigating the laws of the more spiritual world, the divine world he calls it. And this we can find in a methodology such as Freemasonry.
Right.
I mean, his group...
So slightly more specialist then.
More specialist, more private.
Yeah.
And they're working very much like the mystery schools of old. They're searching for the highest laws possible.
Yeah.
and dedicated entirely to charity. So everyone has taken that oath that I will be a charitable, philanthropic person in my life, in my behaviours. I'll be a friend to all people. Love my neighbour, my neighbour as myself, as Jesus taught.
Yeah.
Love God, love one another. The two fundamental laws that Jesus taught.
Yes.
That he wasn't the first one to teach them, but he stated it absolutely clearly.
Yeah.
And so every Freemason or Rosicrucian was dedicated to that. They come to that point where they felt they could do that.
Yes.
Were willing to try it. And that means they were ready to go into the more investigation, more spiritual laws. Because as soon as you're working with love, you are starting to
it's like taking you up a
research that love. How does love work? What is it? And what do all the different words that people have used in the past, different religions, what all these allegories and so on, what do they really mean?
And how do you embody it?
Yeah, how do you embody it? What do they mean in a scientific way?
Yeah.
But even science has its own language. So it's as if you can't grasp the truth without veiling it again with some language.
And the so-called jargon.
Yes. But the thing is, can we put it into practice and produce something good and useful?
Yes. Yeah.
And if everyone in the world could do that, we'd have a golden age.
Yes. Yeah.
So quickly.
So again, Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism were again two vehicles that Bacon was setting up to help us towards that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Freemasonry has existed for a long, long time in different countries of the world.
Yeah.
So, and it was alive and well in England right from the start of Queen Elizabeth's reign. But Bacon's Rosicrucian group, which he inherited from a group before him, you know, he then became the master of it, Grand Master of it. And he brought into it much more the poetic side and his philosophy into it. And that became the historical Rosicrucians that are talked about in the Rosicrucian manifestos.
Yes. Yeah.
But they then infiltrated, it would seem infiltrated, Freemasonry, or were Freemasons already themselves, as I think Bacon was.
Yeah.
And brought these higher ideals into it to try to make Freemasonry not a sort of national thing that it had been up to then, but a universal thing.
Yes.
So anybody of any nationality, any creed, could be a Freemason.
Yeah.
All you had to state when you joined is I believe in a universal being.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what name.
It wasn't dependent on religion.
No, it didn't matter what your religious practice was.
Yeah.
It just, you came together in friendship to work together using a mystery, an allegory, to teach about life itself.
Yes, and for a higher purpose.
And particularly how we go through life according to, in certain degrees. Once we're on that path of love, we're going to what's called initiation. There are degrees that you follow, still based on the mundane process of life, desire, thought, action. But in initiation, your desires become loving, kind. Your understanding becomes, your thinking becomes understanding.
Yes.
Clear understanding, hopefully. And then your actions become charity, service to others. And then you do good in the world. And then comes the end of that. And the end point when you're on that path of initiation is a death process. It's like a death because you're giving of yourself all the time. You're sacrificing your own selfish will.
Well, it's the ego that dies.
Ego dies to let something better be born.
Yeah.
And so the death, initiation of death, is a very important teaching in Rosicrucian Freemasonry. Following that comes the resurrection. Resurrection in a newer, better way, because you've learned from this. You've given thanks. You've given thanks for every part of that process. You look back in remembrance. It's the Feast of Remembrance and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And look back clearly at that, and that brings you this illumination.
Yes.
And you grow as a result. You've got more light and joy, because real illumination is joy. Yes, I know that's truth, because it's practice that's shown itself to me. You know.
And it's actually embedded in yourself.
Embedded in yourself, yes. And at a finer level, at the soul level of our body, it actually is it's that stone. Freemason's called that. It's that stone. You've made a stone of light built into your temple, so your spiritual soul's become bigger than it was before. Yeah. And will go on growing bigger and bigger and bigger.
And shine brighter in the world.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. And a key to him being a founder or refounder, like
Yes.
Orpheus was of the Dionysian mysteries, Maiden of the Orphic mysteries, where
Mm.
Bacon was a refounder of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Key to that is he was given the title towards the end of his life of Viscount St Alban.
Right.
Not St Albans,
St Alban.
St Alban, the name of a saint.
Yes.
Normally you'd have a title named after a place.
That's right. Yeah.
So his title, St Alban, is unique.
Mm.
Not happened before or since, as far as I know. And why? Why
Yeah.
St Alban? Well,
Yeah.
St Alban is known historically to the Freemasons as the founder of Freemasonry.
Right.
And then if you follow what's written in
Mm.
by modern Freemasonry, you'll find there are all the clues there, including the ciphers, because that's another thing about Bacon. He was a great intelligence, a cipherist,
Yes.
cipher mathematics. He saw as
Yes.
one of the highest sciences of all that look into the spiritual laws of the
Yeah.
universe.
Mm. Fascinating, Peter. Thank you so much. I could talk to you forever about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.